My quote is on page 18. I crying for ugly baby, then I forget about ugly baby. I crying for me who no one hold before. And through the use of diction, the words of crying and ugly establish the present sad state that Precious has come to through her abusive childhood. So the first word that I was drawn to was crying, because firstly I was drawn to it because she first starts off crying for the baby, and then all of a sudden she switches over and she's like, no, I'm crying for me. And this sentence is talking when she's 12 years old. She just had her child given to her, and she's talking in the past. But then when we see the verb crying, it is present tense put into a past tense sentence. And crying, adding the ing to create a gerund, even though the sentence is past tense, it makes the word crying more impactful because it shows that it's in the now and it's present, it's happening right now, even though it was in the past. So she's crying right now as well. And that not only did she cry for the baby in the moment, or for herself as well in the moment, she's crying right now for herself because she still has to struggle with living for the fact that she wasn't held ever as a child. And in the past she held her child and was like, wow, I never have been held like this. But it's still a prevalent thing that in her childhood she still wasn't held. And since that, this crying that was created as a gerund in present tense, it establishes how it's still currently affecting her and how the crying is still impactful to this day, even though this was in the past tense. And though she does have bad grammar throughout the book, in this context, I do believe that the present tense of crying was intentional, because not only does this establish like the setting of the book and her state after she got the child, it also connotates towards kind of where she is right now in life as well. And it brings that emotional connotation to the word crying because it shows like how far she's come. Like she still has to reflect on her past, even though it's still here. And crying, however, is a verb, but bringing the present tense of this word to the past tense, it brings an emotional connotation, not just as it is an action, but it brings that emotion along with the physical, which is denoted by the action of crying, which is to shed tears. And since that it's not just she's crying, it's just showing, it's further establishing her struggle with her childhood. And she is still, in a sense, struggling with this idea that the ugly baby received and is receiving more love than her. And another word that stuck out to me was ugly, because not only is ugly just a strongly connotated word, but when like thinking deeper, I believe that this ties to a further envy from Precious towards the baby. And I believe in this sentence, the word ugly is used twice, and it's stressed twice when describing the baby and saying she's crying, because it ties that this child who has Down syndrome, which in her eyes is ugly, is deserving and receives more love than her. And the stress of the word ugly compares her and the baby, making her crying for herself because this ugly child has received more love, which makes a lot more stronger. It not only makes the word crying a lot more stronger, but it shows the meaning of the entire sentence a lot more stronger, that her childhood was a lot worse for an ugly child.